Welcome everyone who's just joining. We're going to get started with our live broadcast in about 1 minute. So make yourselves comfortable, pour another cup of coffee or get a blanket if you're somewhere cold. We know you're joining from all over the globe. So not everyone can be on a boat in sunny Southwest Florida right now. And that's why we're broadcasting to you wherever you are. If you're just tuning in, you can see the boat cam in the corner there. Really cool. This is a live feed from our experience today out in the field. So we'll be introducing everyone, but keep an eye on that cam to see what they're doing as they are releasing that net behind the boat. Stay tuned for more. All right, it's 9:45, so it is time to begin. Welcome everyone to National Estuaries Week. I am Sarah Falkowski. I'm the Education Coordinator at Rookery Bay National Estuary Research Reserve located in Naples, Florida. And I'm here with a whole panel of experts. So first I want to introduce the research manager at Rookery Bay. Britta, tell us about yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Britta Jessen and I work with Pat and a lot of other scientists here at Rookery Bay. Nice to meet you all.
We're also joined by an education specialist. Janine, tell us about it. You're muted.
Well, now that I'm unmuted. Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Janine. I'm with the education team. I'm an education specialist at the reserve and I am so excited to figure out what is going on in the field today with all of you.
So this is really great. I'm going to have a few housekeeping bits, but first I wanted to welcome all of you. It's really great to see such huge numbers. We have almost 900 people registered for this webinar, so thank you wherever you are. We are welcoming students and adults from literally around the globe, and we love our K to Gray audience because there's really something for everyone. This webinar will be recorded and available for future viewing on our website. So make sure that you tune back in if you have friends and family that weren't able to join us live this morning. A few housekeeping things. I wanted to point out that at the bottom of your screen, there is a box called chat. And you are able to communicate with us on the panel. If you need to tell us that you can't hear us or you're having some sort of computer trouble, you can send a note in that chat box and it will go just to the panel. And we can communicate that way. If you have a question, we want you to put it in the Q&A box because that is where the person answering our questions gets the information. And you can watch for your question to be answered live or in text. We will have a Q&A session at the end, but submit your questions throughout so that we'll be able to collect them. And keep your eye on that boat cam because there's all kinds of cool stuff happening. I'm going to go ahead and share a few slides so that you know who we are and where we are as we get started. So give me just a second here to magically share my screen. There we are. Okay, great. So it is National Estuaries Week and we are so glad you're here. We are part of a national network of other estuary research reserves all around the country. And you can see we're located right here at number 18. We are in Southwest Florida on the Gulf of Mexico at the western edge of the Everglades. And every one of these 30 sites is celebrating National Estuaries Week, just like we are. It's really cool to be part of a bigger thing like that. So more about our reserve specifically, we manage 110,000 acres. That's huge. We manage everything inside of this yellow boundary here. We are today broadcasting from the field in the northern part up here towards Naples Bay and the city of Naples. But our reserve goes all the way around Marco Island, this way around Cape Romano, encompasses the 10,000 islands, and we even border Everglades National Park right here with this stair-step boundary. So I want you guys to be able to see exactly what's happening in the field. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to spotlight what's happening in the field on the boat cam. And they're going to tell us what's going on. Okay, field team.
All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Dita. I'm on the education team, and we are out on our boat, Christus, and we just conducted a trawl. Hopefully some of you got to see that, and it takes a few people to do this. So I am joined, well, Pat's joined today by a whole team of individuals. So first off, I'll go to my co-host.
Hey everyone, my name is Morgan. I'm helping out the education team today. Can't wait for you guys to see what we caught.
And you know what? I'm awesome. Let's flip that camera so you can actually see Morgan. Say hi, guys.
Hi everyone. Yes, I'm not Dita's clone. I am myself. Thanks for joining.
All right. Who do we have over here looking through the net?
Hi, I'm Rachel. I intern with the City of Naples, and I'm a graduate student at FGCU.
My name is Linda. I'm a volunteer with Rookery Bay, both with Pat on the trawls and with Team Ocean.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Lockinen with the City of Naples Natural Resources Division. The city's partnered with Rookery Bay for over 10 years now to be able to trawl in Naples Bay at the northern area of the reserve. And because of this partnership, we now have learned and documented what lives in Naples Bay.
And the star of our show.
Hello, Pat O'Donnell. I'm a research fisheries biologist working at Rookery Bay for over 2 decades, looking at fishes and how they're affected by fresh water running off the land.
Perfect. So we just conducted a trawl with this lovely trawl net. And Janine, if you could share that trawl slide. Pat, how does a trawl work?
It's a cone-shaped net, and it's dragged behind the boat, and we collect everything that's in a 1/10 of a nautical mile distance. We bring it in, we sort through it, we try to keep everything alive. We're also sorting through bycatch. We got mangrove propagules from the red mangrove tree. We have sponges that we trawled up, and sponges act as excellent habitat for small fishes, small invertebrates that are out here. And so we try to document all the fishes and the invertebrates that we catch so that we can study them over time.
Perfect. So we do have this beautiful sponge. Janine has pulled up on the slide some of those other bycatch we get. Sometimes there's seagrass, sometimes there's algae. It all depends on where the trawl takes place. And looks like we do have quite a bit of fish today. The team is still scooping everybody out so we can start sorting them.
Put them in the tray here.
So, Pat, who do we have in here?
The most dominant fish that we usually catch are called moharas, and they're a small, almost bait fish that do very well in all situations. So we pretty much catch them in almost every trawl we do. So, and they dominate the data set. This one right here is called the lizard fish, and it prefers the higher salinities. So we're in an area of the bay that does get more influence from the Gulf of Mexico. And that's probably a reason why this guy is here. And we're gonna measure at least 20 of each species before we throw them back alive. And we have 2 lizard fish so far, lots of moharas, and our few sponges. Katie's gonna start measuring some of the moharas. We use the metric system. We measure them quickly, we get them back in the water, so we have less of an impact on the resource.
Mohara 65. Now, Pat, I'm realizing a lot of these fish seem pretty small. Why is that? That was a pretty big net.
These are mainly either small fish to begin with or just juvenile of larger fish species. Estuaries are nurseries, and it's a great place for small things to grow bigger. But the small fish don't really want to go offshore where there's many predators. So they tend to stay in the areas of the estuary where they can hide and make a living in protected areas.
You can see This little guy in my hand, hopefully you can see that guy. This is a very, very small Mahara versus that one Katie was holding was a larger Mahara.
47.
Would this be considered an adult Mahara, Pat?
I would think so, yes. They do get twice as big as that, but that would be an adult. And all these small ones might be first year Maharas. Born sometime this year, or hatched sometime this year.
And these,
36.62.
Ooh, stone crab.
so with these lizard fish, that's a nice up close picture of the larger lizard fish. How big do they get, Pat?
Maybe 40 centimeters.
And I think the inshore lizard fish has a quite impressive mouth of teeth, so it does like to go and eat other fish. We do have a pretty important crab in here. What is it?
That's a stone crab, and they have these purple legs with little white bands on them that you can see. And it's a commercially important invertebrate. So I take the data on the stone crabs and the blue crabs and the pink shrimp that are all commercially fished around here. But these are definitely juveniles. They're nowhere near adult size. So they also live in the estuary because of all the protection and all the food resources that are here in the estuary.
31.29. Right.
Oops. So with these sponges, we definitely like to spend a little time looking at them because they sometimes do hold surprises like this little guy that just crawled out onto my hand. And what was this one, Pat?
That looks like a porcelain crab because it's very flattened from top to bottom. And they love the small spaces within the sponges and also oyster bars. But we can't pull a trawl over an oyster bar, so we do find them a lot in sponges.
31.
And do you always get the same thing in your catch as far as the sponge or?
No, every trawl is different based on maybe sediment type or the currents or water versus salt water versus brackish water. And then fish can move. Crabs can move somewhat, but they can always move. Sometimes they can avoid the net. So to bring up a science terms, the variability is quite high. So the longer we study an area, so the long-term data is much better for figuring out what the trends are and what we can see over time.
Another lizard fish.
We got a bigger lizard fish. Did find another not commercially important little guy. Claw broke off.
That's a pistol.
So this is a little pistol shrimp. I'll get him in the light. Maybe you can see him a little bit. 38. And do these guys look like a regular shrimp, Pat, or do they look kind of weird?
No, when they're a little bit bigger, they have one large claw. So you can tell that they're not the commercially important species. They're very common, but we don't take data on everything. So they kind of escape the data sheet, but they do get released alive.
And then Janine has pulled up a bunch of other crustaceans we get. Sometimes you get those grass shrimp, but again, they're not measured. Those pink shrimp are. And yes, those pink shrimp are the ones you get on your plate down here in Florida.
So we got one of my favorite things.
Oh
my squid. And that's a tiny one. I call these grass squids, but what do you call them, Pat?
The most common squid is called a brief squid.
Brief squid. Get him in the light. There we go. He is a cutie. Yep.
Let's see. We're gonna bring him in the light real quick. I'll try that again. So you can see that little guy. All right, so we'll just put him over and let him go swim where he's nice and happy. There he goes. Oh man, I want to watch him swim. Oh,
that's a pink shrimp.
right there. So that's a juvenile of what is you might like to eat. Then Pat, what's your favorite fish that you catch in your sample?
The first one. I don't have favorites. I just like to document everything that we get and then see what's in there and what kind of trends that they might show. Some fish like the moharas don't really have trends. They're just everywhere.
And is this just one type of mahara? What other type? Do you get anything that ever looks like a mahara?
There are other species of mahara, and even the small ones, we can't tell exactly what species they are here in the field. You would need a microscope for that. So we just lump them into the same genus for the data sheet.
45, 32.
And so you do these trawls to look at the juvenile fish. Is there any other aspect to your fisheries research that you have or any other sampling methods you use?
We do use gill netting and long lining for sharks, juvenile sharks that spend time in the estuary. And we do that in the 10,000 Islands area, which is being restored to a more natural hydrology or water flow. So that's my other main project that I work on. Usually right in the evening time, right around sunset, where they're probably more active than they are during the daytime.
And what kind of sharks do you catch?
Bull sharks, bonnethead sharks, flat tip sharks, lemon sharks, nurse sharks, small hammerhead sharks, scalloped and great hammerheads, and a couple Atlantic sharp-nosed sharks.
And then when you do this, how many sharks do you get on board?
It depends. Sometimes we get 0, but sometimes I think my record in one 4-hour set was 31. So it just varies on the season of the year or how active the sharks might be, or if they're there or if they're not there.
And does anyone out here have a favorite story from going out with doing a trawl or a sharking night?
We caught 23. The one night we went out, it was crazy.
I'm always amazed at the diversity of life that we pull up from the bottom, and essentially my backyard because I live right around the corner. And this is exciting and it's extremely interesting.
So there is one other really interesting larger fish that we get in the shark program. The small tooth sawfish, which is an endangered species, is regularly caught in my sampling gear. And over the last 20 years, their numbers have increased from the beginning of the study to the end of the study. So the sawfish seems to be coming back to better population numbers over the last 20 years, at least in my study. And the Southwest Florida is one of the most productive areas for sawfish on the entire globe.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. When I went out with you, we caught a sawfish.
And then with these sharks that you're pulling them in, do you do anything to collect data from them other than measuring them or?
Yeah, we take 4 different measurements. We determine the sex of the shark because we can do that externally without killing the shark. We determine the species, of course, and sometimes we'll be able to get a weight on the shark if they're small enough for that. We determine if it's a newborn shark, a first-year shark, an immature shark, or a mature shark. And then we will release them alive. I put them in a 5-foot kiddie pool in the back of my boat to keep them alive, and then put tags in them and release them so that maybe they can be caught again someday.
And I did just find a different fish, Pat.
That's got a spot here on the back of the dorsal side, it's called a lane snapper. So it's a very common snapper in this area. Definitely a first-year lane snapper, very small. So let's get a quick measurement on it and then release it. 19 millimeters.
How big do they get?
Oh, maybe 40 to 50 centimeters.
Okay. Do you get any other snappers or any other fish that people may have heard of before, as far as buying in a restaurant or maybe catching?
So the mangrove snapper is aptly named because they mainly hang out at the base of the mangrove trees. So since I cannot pull a trawl in the mangrove trees, we catch them as often as we catch the lane snappers, but they're up in the mangroves and very abundant in Southwest Florida.
Catch them all the time.
And then what is the biggest fish that you've caught in your trawl net?
Twice I've caught a 4-foot nurse shark that would just happen to swim the wrong direction into the net, and instead of escaping the net, and we carefully got it out, measured it, and released it. Occasionally we'll get some decent sized stingrays, southern stingrays. Those are about the largest fishes. Mainly it's very small stuff that fits in the palm of your hand.
And then what's the biggest thing you've gotten during your shark sampling?
15-foot small tooth sawfish, which was the biggest monster I've ever seen in my life. We did not bring it in the boat, but we were able to collect the data we needed by strapping it to the side of the boat and releasing it alive soon after that.
Do we need a measurement for the stone crop?
Yes.
All right, with that, let's head over to Britta and she'll tell you a little bit about the area where Pat does his monitoring in the reserve.
Great. Can everyone see that screen? Okay.
Yep, we can see it. Go ahead.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I was asked to also just let everyone know that everyone on the boat right now is wearing PPE, personal protective equipment, as a policy for Florida DEP right now to make sure that we are doing our best practices to keep everybody safe. Okay, so when Pat gets dragged from this wonderful field back into the office, it's our opportunity to work together as a team to analyze the data that he brings in. We also work with external partners like scientists at the National Centers for Coastal Ocean Science, that's part of NOAA. And Pat had mentioned the long-term monitoring he does. And that long-term data set really is split over fish trawls that tell us about the community makeup of those fish species that live in the bays and shark population and movement. Today, we're going to focus on the fish trawl, the community makeup. And I wanted to also mention another important, let me see if I can change my slide, folks, sorry. There. Another important long-term monitoring program that Rookery Bay does, and that's to study the water itself. We study water at 5 stations within our reserve. You can see a picture of one of our sondes. These sondes actually sit at the stations and collect information every 15 minutes on qualities of water, including temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, pH levels, and turbidity, which is like how much particles are in the water. We're going to focus on 3 of these stations: Pumpkin, Faka Union, and Fakahatchee. And because that's going to tell, and we want to tell you a story about long-term change in our ecosystem. So in the 1960s, there was a major change in the watershed of these bays. A watershed is the land that collects all of the fresh water that comes from the land and down into the estuaries. In the 1960s, there was a major development of land that constructed a canal system that had hundreds of miles of roads. And I've gotten very different numbers for the miles of canals. So I have 48 as the least number, up to 100 miles of canals. And those canals drained all the water from the land into one single canal called Faka Union Canal. And that entered directly into Faka Union Bay. And the result of this is what Pat calls the Goldilocks Bays, which is that we have one bay that's called Pumpkin Bay. It does not receive what would be the normal amount of fresh water from the land into the bay. We have Faka Union Bay, as I just mentioned, that's receiving a ton of water during the rainy season that comes from that canal system into the bay. And then Fakahatchee Bay is what scientists call a reference bay. It has not been affected by the major subdivision system, and it's receiving the normal amount of fresh water. So starting in the 2000s, there was the largest restoration component in the United States. That's called the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. Some people call it CERP for short. This area that I have highlighted in the box is currently under restoration. It is co-managed by the Army Corps of Engineers and the South Florida Water Management District. And it's taken a long time for the planning and the construction and all of the, well, and permitting, all of the work that gets done to restore the system. But it's happening. And within the next few years, we're going to have a very big change that's going to shift this difference from Pumpkin Bay and Faka Union Bay not having that normal flow to having more normal flow. For example, the Corps estimates that Faka Union Bay, when the whole project is complete, will have 75% reduced flow into the bay. And so Pat's been here this whole time. For 20 years, he's been looking at what the impact of these different distributions of freshwater is into the bays. And we're currently working up some of the baseline information because, again, the project hasn't really been completed yet. So we're continuing to monitor, and over time, we're going to produce reports that show whether and how the fish community changes as a result of the changing management of the watershed. But in the meantime, on a shorter scale, I thought I'd also tell the story of how changes in the system affect the fish. So if anyone who lives in this area knows, we had a really big wallop when Hurricane Irma came through Southwest Florida in 2017. In fact, it made landfall in Cape Romano right here at Rookery Bay. And we had 3 of our monitoring stations out to look at the impact of the hurricane to our bays. So first, we found that when a storm comes in, it pushes ocean water into the bays. So you can see, looking at the changes of salinity, that's the saltwater component of the bays, we had a lot more marine water enter when the hurricane first came in. So you can see that push to higher salinity. Then, because of all that rain that got dumped in, the bays became very fresh very quickly. Especially, you see the light blue and the gray lines. Those are the areas in the 10,000 islands that had a lot of rainwater come in and made the bays go completely fresh, just like drinking water. I'm showing you another graph now that shows the changes in oxygen content. I put a red line in here to show you what would make the fish communities very stressed. So if oxygen is reduced down at or lower than 2 parts per million, then over time, the aquatic, the living community, oysters and fish and starfish and everything that's in there become stressed and might even die. So we found that that was really sustained over a number of days following the hurricane. There's a few reasons why this happened. When water gets really hot, then it can't hold on to oxygen as well. And we had very hot and not a lot of wind following the hurricane. Also, there was a lot of food that came down from all that rainfall that came in, pushed a lot of organic material, grass and debris and tree limbs, all that stuff came into the bay. And microbes, decomposing microbes, love to eat that stuff. And they ate it all up and took out the oxygen from the water because microbes like to use oxygen as well. So the fish responded to this. Somehow they knew they needed to get out of town. So Pat went out as soon as he could safely after the hurricane and caught 0 fish in his trawls. Actually, I'm lying a little bit. He caught 1 fish that was an aquarium fish, not really part of the community. So no fish were actually found in these bays immediately after the hurricane. And then we saw them come back and recover. So this is a really interesting story about how we can use Pat's fish trawl to look at major impacts to the estuaries. And that's the end of the data that I wanted to show you for now. I just wanted to keep into your mind that water is habitat, and to study the habitat will give us a really good story of how it impacts the fish. Okay, I hope that was of interest to everyone. I'm going to send it back to the moderator. I'll be free for questions too. Thank you, everyone.
All right, wonderful. Well, we do have a great variety of questions. I am really thrilled, and it looks like they're making their way to probably their next trawl set for the day. They're going to be out there all day. We just got a glimpse of one trawl that they're doing, and actually that was one of the questions in our Q&A that I think Britta wanted to answer live, or anybody's more than welcome. But how many of these trawls do they do in one day? And how often do they do them, say, in a month?
So Pat,
we do 4 trawls in each bay system per day. But in the 10,000 Islands area, we'll do all 3 bays in 3 successive days. And we do monthly sampling. So every month we're out in each bay once a day, trying to see, what the effects are during that month. And it provides a very good long-term data set for understanding the different seasons of the year and how things change over time, and when different fishes might be spawning or eggs.
Oh, we're having a bit of a hard time hearing you guys. I think maybe the wind, or we can switch back to Britta and myself. So yeah, Pat mentioned that they have the different bays that Britta showed on her slides, and that he's doing this in each bay each month, right? And then he's doing 4 trawls in one day. So each time he goes out. Wonderful. Britta, could you tell us, why is this work that Pat's doing important for the bigger world? Can anybody else access this information? Would it be important or valuable?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually typing that answer as you just said it out loud. So we're not the only location that has major changes in our freshwater distribution into our estuaries. This is actually freshwater control is a very common natural resource factor across the Gulf of Mexico, and of course into the rest of the world as well. So by serving as a study place, we can provide all of the information we pull from this area, and natural resource managers across the United States and globally are going to be able to use our study site as a way of interpreting how their freshwater management impacts their estuaries. Remember, fish is food for a lot of communities, so it has a very important impact economically.
Awesome, great. And so let's see, got just a ton of great questions here. Britta, do you know if, let's see, do you know if, this is so funny. Do you know if Pat has ever caught like an odd exotic fish that maybe we weren't expecting?
That one fish that I mentioned that he caught following Hurricane Irma was a plecostomus, which if anyone has these aquarium tanks at home, there's that fish that likes to suck all the algae off of your aquarium tank. So that poor guy left his aquarium and went out in the 10,000 Islands.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
I'll just say not exactly awesome, because you want ecosystems natural.
It just showed that we had so much fresh water, so you could really see the impacts. All right, so we have some questions for Pat that I think would be great to have answered. Some questions about the shark research. We have a question that says, how can you tell the age and the sex of a shark?
So telling the sex of the shark is very easy. Males have 2 claspers on the inside of the pelvic fins. So if they have claspers, they're males. If they don't have claspers, they're females. The age is very, very difficult to figure out because sharks have cartilage instead of bone, and it's very difficult to age cartilage. So there are ways to do it, but you would have to kill the shark to do it. And I've never done it myself because I like to keep sharks alive after I tag them. So even the experts can't get an exact date or an exact year, but they can guesstimate on how old sharks are.
Awesome. And Pat, have you ever been bitten by a shark? Sounds like a pretty dangerous or wild adventure.
I haven't been bitten by a shark, but a couple teeth did graze my skin before, gave me a little scratch. Other than that, it's fairly safe. These are smaller juvenile sharks that we're able to handle quite easily. And I have safety measures on the boat that we can use to stay away from the sharks. But I do bring them into our world out of their aquatic world. So they're not as strong or able to maneuver as well once we bring them onto the boat. But I do keep them alive so we can release them afterwards.
We have some questions about your fish trawls. So I think this is really interesting. Have you ever found any endangered species in your trawl?
Bonefish? Do you ever get bonefish?
Yeah, they're not endangered. So no endangered species. The sawfish is one of the only saltwater endangered fish that I know of. And I do get them in the gillnet project. There's some rare fish that I get, but none of them are really on the listed species.
Okay, and we noticed that you were taking measurements, and a few of our audience members noticed, you're measuring these fish. So someone wanted to know, what is the smallest fish that you have caught? What can you catch in that net?
So some of these moharas, when they're first hatched from the eggs, are maybe 4 millimeters long, so very small. Sometimes they'll go right through the net and we won't catch them. So the gear type determines the size of fish that we get. And my net moves so slowly along the bottom that a lot of the larger fish can just swim away. They sense the net coming and they just swim away. So this gear is mainly designed for the smaller juveniles of the species and the small adult sized fishes.
And anything dangerous that you might catch on board during your trawls?
The most dangerous fish that we catch all the time are catfish. They have three spines on them, and many people have been spined by these catfish. So I warn people, always look out for catfish. Occasionally we'll get stingrays, which have one barbed spine, and they can be dangerous as well. But again, we have safety measures or protocols in place to keep people away from these dangerous fins and spines.
Morgan.
Those are the worst ones. So the crabs, the blue crabs, are very quick and have strong claws. And if you get pinched by one of the claws, it's going to hurt. So you have to be careful with blue crabs and some of the other swimming crabs.
Awesome. Yeah, that's why you guys have all that protective gear. I saw you were using your net to collect everything from the large tub. So you're trawling in different places through every month, and based on what time of year, are you going to see different things, different amounts, depending on the time of year?
Yes, so the summertime is our most active or productive time of year. The warmer water temperatures help. So spring, summer, and fall, we get a lot more small fish. When the waters cool down in our winter time, we tend to catch fewer fish, but they tend to be a little bit larger. So there's definitely a seasonality to the different amounts of fish that we get, and sometimes different species. There's a couple of fish that spawn in the wintertime down here, and those are pinfish and pigfish. So I see the little young of the ears mainly in the wintertime. So it's my job to kind of figure out all these trends that I see in the data, and I have to look up and learn about these fish as well and figure out why we're catching them during certain times of the year.
Awesome. One last question for Pat, and then if we have time, one for Britta. But we have an audience member that wants to know if they want a job like you, if they want to be just like you, what kind of schooling should they pursue?
Do as well as you can in school. You know, better grades mean better opportunities. College, a 4-year college degree helps. And then these days, an advanced degree, a graduate degree, like a master's in science, definitely helps as well. Some people go on to PhDs, but I would say to do the work that we do here, a master's degree is very helpful into getting those jobs.
All right, awesome. I don't know if we have time, but somebody was really, a few people were interested in those, the slide that Britta had up after Irma. And we just have a couple minutes before we have to wind down and say goodbye. But do you think that would be okay if we shared that again, Britta?
Sure.
I think a lot of local people just probably find that really interesting.
Let me go back into it. Yeah, actually.
All right, hey everybody. Before Britta, you start those slides, we're gonna sign off here from the field. Like Janine said, we've got a few more trawls to do today, and it's hot. So we're gonna see you guys later. Thank you so much for joining us on Facebook. Thanks again. All right, everybody say sign off.
Bye. Nice being with you.
Can we go back? Okay.
You can share your screen, Britta. Perfect.
We'll go for it. Let me see if I think it is this one here. And I was going to say that this report actually got shared with a Florida congressional office to look at the impact of Hurricane Irma on fish communities. So we have we use our data to both connect with professionals, scientists, educators, of course, and then policymakers who really want to understand what was the impact of natural disasters to the communities here. Were there any particular questions you had about this?
I think they just wanted it up to see it just for a little longer. So thank you for doing that. And with that, I'll try to answer some more of your questions. Audience, we have so many pouring in. I'll try to type some answers in. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to everybody today, but again, we just really appreciate you being here. And we'll hand it over to Sarah to finish up our webinar.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for attending. This was really fun for us. You know, we're working from our home offices and we really miss connecting, especially with school students on field trips out in the field. So since our Environmental Learning Center is still closed and we're working remotely since March, we're really happy to be able to broadcast to you wherever you are, because this is the next best thing to being in person. So I really want to thank you for coming. I do want to show a slide about some things we have coming up, but first I just wanted to let you know that we are doing a survey at the end of this presentation. So when you sign out today, a screen will pop up that says, please click on this link to complete some questions. And as you may know, we have been doing so many events this week and we still have 3 more to go. So we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can. This is going to be a model for our programs moving forward, at least during this pandemic, until we return to whatever the new normal may look like. So we want to be able to keep doing what we're doing great, and we want to improve what we can. So please give us feedback at that link, and we really value that. So I want to go ahead and share what we have coming up. I have my slide here. And first, I wanted to thank everyone for participating from the boat. There's no way that we can do the work that we do with about 40 staff in 110,000 acres without partners. So thank you today to all the volunteers that were out, as well as the staff from the city of Naples. So there's just no way that we couldn't do it without you, and viewers like you as well. So thank you so much for that. This is the list of all of the events that we're doing this week. And I know it's really tiny, so I've enlarged it over here. So we just finished our Finding Fish on a Boat trawl. And tomorrow we do not have a program in the morning because we're gearing up for our 1 o'clock Meet the Filmmaker. So you'll have an opportunity to ask questions to the Emmy Award-winning Elam Stolfus. If you haven't seen our amazing documentary called Mangrove Coast, it is on PBS right now. You can go to pbs.org or use the app on your Apple TV, and you can watch our 1-hour documentary about Rookery Bay. It's really amazing. And you'll meet the staff that were interviewed and part of the filmmaking in tomorrow's webinar. So we hope that you'll join us for that. And tomorrow night, we have our culminating event after 7 days of celebrating National Estuaries Week. We invite you all to Estuary Trivia. So we are going to celebrate all of the estuary heroes that you've heard from this week. And if you have watched our webinars or go back to our website and see the recordings of our webinars this week, you will have an edge at trivia. So we hope that you'll join us. You'll need your own device to be able to play, and it will be so fun because you'll be at home, you'll be celebrating whatever it is you like to do at 7 p.m. Eastern on a Friday night, and we will be talking about our favorite subject, estuaries, and other nature-oriented topics. So we hope you'll join us for this interactive event, and there are prizes. So I think that's all that we have for today. I do want to enter the link into the chat box to be able to register for our other events. So if you haven't signed up for tomorrow, please do. It's in the chat box right now, and it is our National Estuaries Week page. And that's where you'll also find the recordings to our previous events. This has been streamed on Facebook Live. If you're not already a friend of the Friends of Rookery Bay in the Facebook world, please join them, and you'll be able to see all of our upcoming events that way too. So I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and we'll give a nice wave from the panelists. So thank you for your questions. They were so thoughtful. It was really fun to answer them. And we hope you'll join us again.